Folks, what I'm about to tell you tonight is not politics. It's not just talk. It's something I truly saw. Something that shook me. I'm telling you, Jesus showed me something about America's future, and it's powerful. You're going to want to listen to every single word, because what's coming next will affect every family, every believer, every worker, every dreamer in this great nation. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this to prepare you. I saw an America divided, but not destroyed. I saw light rising where there was darkness, and faith returning where it had been forgotten. People who thought God was gone, they were wrong, completely wrong. And what's even more amazing is that the future I saw depends on you. Every one of you sitting here, watching this, scrolling through your phone, you have a role in what's about to happen. This is not a small thing. This is not another speech. This is a message that came straight from a vision that can't be ignored. I'm going to talk about what Jesus showed me, about the trials, about the shaking, and about the revival that's coming to this nation. I'm going to show you what America will look like if we listen, and what it will look like if we don't. Stay with me until the end, because I promise you, once you hear what I saw, you'll never see this country the same way again. When I saw it, folks, it was like looking right into the heart of America, and I'll tell you, it wasn't easy to see. There was division like never before. People were shouting, angry, pointing fingers, families torn apart, communities falling into silence. It was like everyone forgot what it meant to be united under one flag, one nation, under God. I saw cities burning with frustration, small towns losing hope, young people wandering with no direction, and the media, the same old story, twisting everything, pushing fear, dividing even more. But then in the middle of all that chaos, there was a light, a real light, not from government, not from money, not from power. It came from faith. It was the light of Jesus rising again in the hearts of people who refused to give up. I saw ordinary Americans, hardworking, faithful people, standing up again, praying again, loving again. They were not politicians, not celebrities, just real people saying, "We've had enough." I saw churches that had been empty, filled with voices, songs, prayers. It was incredible, beautiful. People who had been quiet suddenly spoke truth. They weren't afraid anymore because something inside them had changed. That light, the one Jesus showed me, it didn't just shine on buildings or monuments. It went right into hearts. And when hearts light up, the nation changes. I saw young people, kids who had grown up thinking faith was outdated, suddenly looking for truth, asking questions, opening Bibles again, talking about Jesus in schools, in music, online. It was like a spark spreading across the country. The darkness tried to cover it, but it couldn't. Every time the world tried to shut it down, it grew stronger. That's when I realized something very big. America's future wasn't gone. It was just waiting to be awakened. The division, the noise, the anger, it was all leading to a moment of decision. And in that moment, people began to see that the answer wasn't in politics, wasn't in promises, but in a return to the one who blessed this nation from the very beginning. What I saw next was something deeper than politics or division. It was a battle that couldn't be fought with weapons or laws. It was a spiritual battle, folks, and it was happening right here in America. Not somewhere far away, not in some distant land, but right here in our homes, in our schools, in our hearts. I saw forces of darkness trying to twist truth, erase history, destroy faith. It wasn't about left or right. It was about good and evil, light and darkness. People didn't even realize they were in a war because it didn't look like one. It looked like entertainment, like culture, like progress. But underneath it all, something powerful was trying to take control of the soul of this nation. I saw people turning against what is right, calling evil good and good evil. The lines between truth and lies were blurred. The enemy didn't come with fire or fury. It came with confusion, distraction, comfort. It whispered, "You don't need God anymore." And too many started believing it. But even in that darkness, I saw a remnant, strong, faithful men and women who refused to bow down. They stood in prayer when everyone else mocked them. They spoke truth when it was dangerous to do so. They carried the light like warriors, not with weapons, but with faith, courage, and conviction. And I'll tell you, those people were unstoppable. The more they were silenced, the louder their faith became. The more they were pushed down, the higher they rose. It was like watching David stand against Goliath again and again. That's when I understood what Jesus wanted me to see. This battle isn't about saving a government, it's about saving hearts. It's not about taking sides, it's about choosing the truth. And in this war, the greatest weapon isn't fear, it's faith. The enemy wants America to forget who she is, but the moment this nation remembers her creator, everything starts to change. The darkness loses power, lies fall apart, and freedom begins to shine again, because faith always wins when people decide to stand firm and believe in something greater than themselves. When I looked at what Jesus showed me next, it was like watching the heartbeat of America begin to pulse again after years of silence. I saw the faith of the founders, the kind of faith that built this nation, returning with strength and conviction. The same faith that guided brave men and women across oceans, that inspired them to write words like, "In God We Trust," was coming back. It wasn't about religion in buildings or ceremonies. It was about a living faith, one that shaped how people lived, worked, raised their families, and treated one another. The spirit that once made America fearless and free was rising again, and it was unstoppable. I saw people digging back into the roots of what made this country great. Not the surface stories, but the truth that America was built by people who believed that without God, there is no true liberty. I saw schools teaching children about faith again, not as a rule, but as a foundation. History books that had erased God's hand in America's creation were being rewritten by people who knew the truth and were not afraid to speak it. It was powerful. Communities began to rebuild, not through government programs, but through prayer meetings, through neighbors helping neighbors, through hearts turning back to what matters most. And the most amazing part, this return to faith didn't come from the top. It came from the ground up. Ordinary people, families, pastors, teachers, soldiers, workers, they were the ones leading it. I saw gatherings in parks, worship in streets, people holding hands across differences, realizing they were stronger together under God than apart in pride. The American spirit that had been buried under years of division began to roar again. There was a fire, not a political one, but a spiritual one, spreading like wildfire across the land. And as it spread, fear began to fade, confusion began to lift, and truth began to take its rightful place again. America's foundation, the one built on faith, was no longer forgotten. It was alive, moving, powerful, and the people were starting to remember who blessed this nation from the very beginning. Then I saw something that changed everything, a new generation rising, stronger, bolder, and more awake than anyone expected. These were not the same young people the world tried to label as lost or distracted. No, these were warriors of light. With fire in their eyes and truth in their hearts, they had grown up in a world full of confusion, lies, and noise. But they were not buying it anymore. They were searching for something real, something solid, something eternal. And when they found Jesus, they didn't just believe quietly. They stood up, they spoke out, they refused to be silent. I saw young voices preaching on college campuses, in coffee shops, on social media, not for fame, not for likes, but for truth. They weren't afraid of being canceled because they understood that being chosen was far greater. This generation was different because they had seen what happens when faith is forgotten. They had seen the emptiness. the chaos, the brokenness, and they wanted something more. They were bold, unshakable, filled with courage that didn't come from the world. They prayed like warriors, they worshiped like soldiers, and they loved people with a power that disarmed hate. I saw them walking into dark places, schools, cities, even entertainment, and bringing light everywhere they went. The atmosphere changed. They didn't wait for permission. They created change through conviction. It was like watching a spiritual revolution led by hearts that refused to bow to fear. What amazed me most was how united they were. They didn't care about color, status, or background. They were brothers and sisters, standing side by side, holding the truth like a banner. They reminded everyone that America wasn't finished. It was being reborn through them. The faith their grandparents had prayed for, they were now living out loud. I saw thousands gathering not for concerts but for prayer. I saw hands lifted, tears falling, hearts surrendering. The same generation the enemy thought he had stolen was coming back stronger than ever. They were chosen, called, and they knew it. And in their courage, in their passion, I saw the spark that would reignite America's purpose and lead it into a new season of strength, faith, and awakening. What I saw last was the call, the moment when every American had to decide what side they were on. It wasn't a call from government or media, it was a call from heaven itself. I saw people standing at a crossroads, one path leading to fear, comfort, and compromise, and the other leading to courage, truth, and faith. And the voice was clear: stand up or lose what you were given. It wasn't about waiting for someone else to fix things. It was about realizing that each of us had a role to play. Jesus was showing me that the future of this nation would not be written by politicians, but by the people who had the faith to stand when everything around them said, sit down. I saw men and women rising from every corner of the country, not just pastors or leaders, but mechanics, nurses, farmers, teachers, young people, all saying, we will not bow. They stood firm in their homes, in their schools, in their workplaces. They prayed over their families, spoke truth in love, and refused to trade righteousness for acceptance. It wasn't easy. Many faced rejection, pressure, even loss. But the strength they carried wasn't from this world. It came from the Spirit of God. That's what made them unstoppable. I saw communities forming, people gathering not to complain, but to encourage each other, to build, to protect what was good. They didn't wait for a miracle, they became the miracle. Faith turned into action, helping the poor, forgiving enemies, standing up for the innocent, rebuilding trust where it was broken. It was like the early days of America all over again, when courage and conviction meant something. I saw the church waking up, not to be comfortable, but to be powerful. Voices that had been silent for too long began to roar again. The world tried to shame them, but they stood taller. And as they stood, something incredible happened. Hope began to spread faster than fear. The call to stand was more than a choice, it was a destiny. And when the people answered that call, the light that had started as a spark began to cover the whole nation, and America started to look like the nation God intended it to be.